Hello, everybody. My name is Drew Koleros, and I'm the Director of Research, Monitoring, and Evaluation and Palladium in the UK. I could speak a little bit about my experience with RCA in the policy arena and how the RCAs that I've worked on have added value to policy reform and policy changes. And it's something that I'm really passionate about and something that I can talk quite easily about, so I'll try to keep it down to 5 minutes. I've been working using data from RCAs for quite a few years now, from a first assignment in an evaluation that I did in Nepal up through some current evaluations that I'm working now. And I felt that the RCA is a really powerful piece of evidence that I've been able to use in a lot of different capacities to help to inform the policy reforms. So I think we're in a moment now where there's a recognition of the importance of evidence-based policy, and there's quite a lot of resources and publications and people out there talking about how we use evidence to inform policy. But oftentimes that evidence is limited to the quantitative types of evidence, so the type of things that come out of quantitative studies or surveys showing that this policy will do this, or different models of economic models, etc., that are trying to show different policy changes and what that would look like in populations. But there has been a real lack of the recognition of the importance of qualitative evidence as well in informing policies, and that's really where the RCA adds quite a lot of value. And I think that specifically in the policy arena, where it's just quite far from an individual and quite far from the front lines, if you will, of development, RCA helps to ground that and bring policymakers down to the grassroots level and the people that ultimately are meant to be impacted positively by these policies. And I think oftentimes the people who are making policies are not only the policy itself, but these are the people who are the furthest removed from development, if you will, the people, and not just the international communities, but even the bureaucrats who are making policy, who are quite far away from the people that are meant to benefit from this. And I think that the RCA is so powerful because it brings the experience of people to the policymakers themselves. Even though we think that the quantitative evidence is the most important, somebody's experience, a quote from somebody, or telling a story about how something has affected their lives can be much more powerful for an individual than any figures or graphs that you might see in a report. And that's very much been my experience. So I mentioned earlier that I did an evaluation of a program of DFID support to programs in the eastern part of Nepal, in the Koshi Hills region of Nepal, and the reality check was a really important piece of evidence that we use as part of our evaluation. For instance, understanding the importance of remittances over the last 40 years as people have continued to migrate out of that region and sent people back money, how remittances really has had a transformational impact on people's lives. Well, that was something that the development community and policy completely missed. So hearing the stories of how remittances from family members help people lift themselves out of poverty was a really important piece of information, both for the government of Nepal and for DFID to start thinking about how they could be using donor funds to implement more responsive programs that might help people get better skills to get more remittances or use those remittances more responsibly. So that's just one experience of some value add that the RCA had in that space. DFID Nepal particularly has seen the real importance of using the RCA evidence in their policy and program design documents. So just recently they commissioned Palladium to do an RCA of earthquake affected regions of Nepal just after the April 2015 earthquake, to help understand how the response was received and to help identify from people's lives the real priorities moving forward so they could help to better program money in these earthquake affected responses. So we're starting to see more and more of a recognition of the power of this qualitative evidence and the stories and the individual stories of people's lives that are coming out of the RCA to help policymakers really realize how to make policies more relevant. Currently, I'm using the reality check as the qualitative component of a mixed methods evaluation that I'm doing in Ethiopia of a land reform program. And the RCA that we did last July was some of the first evidence that came out talking to smallholder farmers about what life is like in rural Ethiopia, the challenges that they have accessing markets, accessing inputs to improve their yields. And that evidence has really been well received by both the program and by DFID to understand how they might better target their market development interventions to be sure that genuinely the skills and the input supplies that poor people in this region are looking for are prioritized and targeted. So I see RCA not only as an added value to the policy reform, but actually an essential value, that we really shouldn't be making development policy based just on the hard numbers that kind of come out of the quantitative evidence. But actually, we really do need these qualitative evidence. We need to understand how these policies affect people's lives, and that needs to be part of the debate as well. And I've been a huge advocate of RCA since